Today we're going to talk about health shaming.
Mm.
If you're a health conscious parent, it may be something that you've experienced personally. Or like me, you're online and you read comment threads. You've probably seen it going on. Definitely in my early years of blogging, I used to share lunch boxes and I used to cop it astounded me. It surprised and astounded me. I didn't realise that lunchboxes could be so controversial. I used to cop all sorts of flack. I was doing it because I wanted to just give people ideas about the kinds of foods that you can pack into a lunchbox. But yeah, I almost I actually was threatened several times, like privately, not so much in comment threads about, how it was disgusting that I fed my kids this way and that they were going to grow up with issues with food because I wasn't feeding them normal food. And, look, I was just showing pictures of literally wraps and sandwiches and rolls, but I did usually have like some raw vegetables in there, homemade like slices or biscuits or something. But when they were little, I generally didn't rely on packets at all. I just got myself into a system where I had, sometimes I had rice paper rolls. They went through a stage of not liking sandwiches and rolls. So we did, a lot of like leftovers and, chicken drumsticks. And I copped so much flack though. And it really surprised me.
It can be painful, hey?
Yeah, it was horrible. Just the other day, I saw a woman get attacked in a Facebook group because she asked for help for navigating the constant supply of treats at school. And, people were saying to her, just lighten up. She was saying that it was almost every day that her son, who was really sensitive to a lot of additives and preservatives, was being given lollies and birthday cakes and chocolates. And, she was obviously a health conscious mum who was trying to do her best to avoid those things because she knew that affected her son's learning and his behaviour. But he was being given those things at school. And as I said, she was just asking for help and advice as to how to perhaps approach that with the school. But the amount of shaming she received and ridicule and, being told that, as I said, she was, going to create a kid with an eating disorder because she wouldn't, if she stopped allowing him to have those foods. And it was really quite heartbreaking, actually. And I feel like, here Jane and I are very much about balance. And our aim with what we do here in the podcast and with our work in our program Raising Malnourished Kids is, our aim is really just to, and even in raising our own kids, our aim is just to share advice to support you to raise kids that actually have a healthy relationship with food. And we totally understand that sometimes our desire for what our kids are exposed to and what we want them to eat are conflicting. I've 100% had that so many times in my life. And, let's face it, sadly, healthy eating often has a stigma attached to it rather than us accepting and praising parents that they're doing all they can to feed their kids whole foods and make healthy decisions on their behalf. Those parents are often labelled as unrealistic or extreme, and I know I've definitely been judged potentially based on my profession. I've had even friends say to me things like, oh, don't get the chocolates out, or put the chocolates away, the naturopath's here, or don't open that bag of chips in front of her, And I'm not casting any judgment on, that's the funny part. I cast no judgment on them, those kids eating bags of chips. Sometimes my kids eat bags of chips. But I've always allowed my kids to eat, chocolate, and I definitely, when they were little, controlled their exposure to those foods as much as I possibly could. But I definitely, once I realised I couldn't control every aspect of what they ate, I embraced that as well as that phase of me raising my kids.
I feel like, especially with social media, I think it is so, because there's that distance, you don't get the full context of the person and their life and why they make the choices they make. Like, I know for me, I had massive health issues all through my teen years and in my early 20s. And so there was a lot of foods I couldn't eat or I got unwell. And so what I ate was really important. And I know that lots of people, I used to feel kind of judged for it, or they would feel judged by me.
Yes.
Because they made choices that I really didn't care about.
Well, that's where those comments about, get the chips away, the naturopaths here, they thought that I was there to judge their kids. And I personally never focus on other people. I focus on my own choices and leading by example as well. You know, like I hope, even with sharing my lunchboxes online when I did, it was to inspire other people that this is possible. This is a working mum that's putting this lunchbox together for her child. And here's some ideas of things that you might find really easy to add to your own kids' lunch.
Totally. And that stuff comes naturally to you.
Absolutely.
Because for me it didn't. So I did find it really helpful because my brain just doesn't work that way. But I feel like it's... like I was saying, the social media environment, and that we lose context.
Yes, we do.
And I mean, some lucky people may never have had health issues, and their kids may not have health issues. Like I know for me, when my son was little, sugar and additives really changed his behaviours. So for us, that was really important to kind of have as whole food as much as we can. I mean, he went to parties and he ate whatever, and the same, I've never stood there and kind of said, because I don't know the context of, and I don't know the broader.
And we all have our own values and beliefs, and health is one of my highest values, and I respect that that's not everyone else's highest value. But for me it is. So that's why I prioritise.
We've both had health issues.
And I have had health issues as a child.
Quite extreme.
Absolutely. I had a heart problem as a child, and so
it does reframe.
It really
what's important to you.
100%. And I didn't have any issues with food per se. That wasn't the cause. Diet was not the cause of my health problems, but it just made me really value not having to spend time in hospital repeatedly and not, like, that's why health is obviously one of my highest values, and why I became a naturopath because I was helped significantly by a naturopath.
So what has helped you deal with health shaming, or when people kind of say comments that maybe they don't realise even how they land in you?
Look, I mean, I always reflect on why is it, particularly when it's a stranger. With the online stuff, like you said, I just accept that some people feel better about themselves perhaps when they put other people down. Maybe they aren't able to feed their kids those foods, so they turn on someone else and try and justify their own food choices by being nasty to someone else. I don't know, I'm making assumptions here. But, when it's coming from a friend or someone nearby, as I said, it's always done in a jokey way. But I still think, like, that's not what I'm about. I feel like misrepresented almost because that's not what I'm about. Like I said, I have allowed my children to eat. Like I'm invested in developing a healthy, well-rounded relationship between my children and the food that they eat. So I understood quite early on that having blanket bans on certain things, and, we talk about repeatedly here and in the program, we talk about education and linking food choices to the way that we feel, and that's all part of that process of raising children who have that great relationship with food. So, when it has come from friends or family members, it does hurt sometimes, without a doubt.
Totally.
But I am so solid in my set of beliefs, I feel, that I just sometimes also feel like, again, it's more about them and less about me and my choices. So that's how I mentally reframe it to help myself from being bogged down by those comments.
I once heard someone talk about us and the importance of how, as humans, we're really wired to belong and to be together and to be part of, like, a herd, so to speak. And that when one of us does kind of do different things to the herd, people in the herd will say things and do things to try to kind of pull us back in. And often they may use like shame or, kind of mean comments to make us go, oh, and to kind of turn back towards the herd.
Yes, okay.
And for me, that's been really helpful.
That is super helpful.
To kind of really not make anyone better or worse. It's not about that, but it's just to notice what's happening. Oh, I think I'm being more, I think I'm growing or changing, and I'm becoming different.
Yes.
And they're worried that in me becoming different, we're not going to stay connected.
Yes.
And so it's kind of been an awareness of, oh, this is what's happening.
Yes.
And not engaging in the whole, like not rationalizing why I'm doing what I'm doing. I know when I was a new mum, I was really idealistic.
Yes, me too.
So me coming back into the middle of it.
But I also think when you have control, I always say to people to take control. There's no need for a 10-month-old baby or a 12-month-old baby. I can remember our first Easter.
Yeah.
And, my daughter was young.
Yeah. They don't even know what an egg is.
That's it. So I'm not going to give her Easter eggs because she used to, if she was given an Easter egg at a shopping centre or at daycare or something, she'd just carry it around because it was a pretty little foil thing. She didn't know what was inside. So I took control.
Yeah.
But like with parenting, we discuss all the time, there's a point at which you cannot control everything that your child eats or drinks or does even.
Yeah.
And you have to find that middle ground.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a problem with, that those extremes. I think it's personally, I think it's a great thing that, we control what goes in our child's mouth from a very young age while we can.
Yeah. Well, I know for me, I was the same.
Yes.
And it was motivated to I wanted to keep them well. I knew that sugar depressed their immunity.
Yeah.
For me, their immune systems being really strong and laying the foundation of good health was really important. But getting back to health shaming, I think something else that was helpful for me was having friends that were aligned with what I was doing.
With your values.
And so I could kind of go and say, far out, am I being this? Or do I seem judgy? Or so I could kind of really, get a neutral opinion of, because it is upsetting and it can be isolating when you're the one at playgroup that brings a certain type of food and no one else at playgroup has that kind of food, and other people are turning their noses up or making these comments that can feel really hurtful and make you feel really alone. So I guess for me it is being mindful of that we are all doing our best and we are kind of
we're working with our own set of beliefs 100%. And values.
And there's reasons why we do things, and we may not understand one another's reasons. Like people may not understand that you had a serious heart condition when you were little. So for you, health is like, it's hugely important. The holy grail, And same with me, like I had chronic fatigue. So health is hugely important to me. And so people don't see the broader context.
Yes.
But I think, to be kind and to be curious. Like for me, I'd rather be asked a question than people just make an assumption. And maybe online I would love that if we learnt to kind of get curious and ask questions. Then we can all learn and grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than just fire off these comments that, like you said, and I hope this doesn't sound judgy, but when people make unkind comments, it is a reflection of it's their stuff.
Yes.
Because I always, when I'm feeling happy and cool in myself, I want the best for people.
Yes.
It's when I'm struggling or, it's, so I think it's...
Yeah, you find yourself casting judgments a little too easily, more easily than when, like you said, you're feeling solid within yourself. And that's the nature of being human, isn't it? So unfortunately, it is part of our human world nature. And our lives and our human nature. But hopefully we've given you a few things to think about and some little tips for how we've dealt with health shaming over the years as well.
Yeah, or just being different.
Yeah, or just being different.
One more little tip was, for me, really helpful, was I did do a lot of research.
Yes.
So I did kind of And just for myself, I didn't spruik that research, but if people were doubting me or asking me a lot of questions, then I would kind of, well, why am I doing this?
Yes.
And then I'd go back to reading from specialists,
Yes.
like from real leaders in the field of nutrition, health. So I would kind of really go back
educated.
to, why am I doing this, and is it worth it? And then it would kind of reaffirm and help me stand solid.
I was going to say it makes us more solid if you're standing in your own power that's based on a knowledge and an innate knowing, then that's always the best place to come from.
Yeah, because it can be hard, especially I know for me when my kids were little, we were in, same with you, an isolated community, and they had very different beliefs. I was a yoga teacher. They thought that was very wacky, and I felt
it's in the same, it sits in the same category as naturopath. Yeah, totally. I can remember when I was in clinical practice, well before I had kids, and the ladies that ran the dispensary in my practice used to call me, like their affectionate nickname was the fruit and nut bar.
Oh, wow.
Like, which was just like, I was like, not quite sure how to take that.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah. But words can hurt.
Yeah.
And we're all doing our best.
Yes.
And none of us understand like the reasoning behind why someone does something. So
absolutely
learning to have generous assumptions, to assume the best rather than the worst.
And I pull myself up on this all the time. Just recently I was in Melbourne and we were at like a bar after a football game having a meal. Yeah. And there were some really rowdy women, like older women, really rowdy and dancing and trying to pull people off tables. And I'm like an introvert, so I'm sitting there cringing and thinking, oh my God, this is just like...
Don't pick me.
Don't pick me. How embarrassing. I was casting all of these judgments.
Yeah.
And then one of the ladies came over and was talking to us. And what they were doing, they were kind of daring each other and then going to different tables. So one of them is they wanted someone to come and sing happy birthday. And my husband like pointed my daughter out because she's a singer naturally. Mm-hmm. She was horrified. He ended up going over to the table and singing happy birthday because he's really extroverted. But anyway, I was casting judgments. We all were. The whole table was like, oh my God, like. And then one of the ladies came over, one of the older ladies, and she told us that it was her, she was out with her daughter and a group of her daughter's friends, and her daughter had recently lost, really choked up, had recently lost her 3-year-old to cancer.
Wow.
And they were out just having fun and trying to distract this mum. And I just thought, holy shit, like I'm sitting here judging this woman and I know nothing about her and her situation. So bringing it back to your point where you just don't know anything about someone, look at us both sitting here bawling.
I know.
Good time to wrap this one up. On this happy note, we'll leave you with it.